Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm bringing to you 10 cozy book recommendations. I'm specifically doing this video at this point because December and January are the months where I live in Chennai. We have this cold, nice, cozy climate and we can wear all those heavy cozy clothes if you are into that kind of stuff like me. I have a mixture of genres here and there are totally 10 books as I've said before. Few of these books are really easy to spot because so many other people also recommend them, and a few others are books which I felt super cozy while reading, particularly during this year. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. The first book that I'm recommending today is something which I resonated with a lot while I read it. I just picked this book on a whim and I've heard really good things about it before I read it, but only while reading the book I was able to understand why it is so much favorite for so many people out there. Despite it being a favorite for so many people, I don't think it's as much popular, so I'm recommending it here in this video. The book is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson, in which we follow our main character Liz, and she's struggling to gather funds in order to get into college, even though she's a really bright student. She had this kind of scholarship that is based on the band that she's a part of, but because of some reasons that also disintegrates, so the only way she can gather funds is by winning the title of prom queen for that particular year in the prom that's happening in her high school. So despite being super introverted and not at all popular, she chooses to take that as an option and enrolls herself into the competition to become the prom queen. What all happens surrounding this is the actual plot of this book, and I should say that you can read this during any season throughout the year and you will feel the cozy vibes that it gives out. It also talks about a rare disease that is not that much talked about in any kind of media, namely sickle cell anemia, and I learned a few things about that particular ailment from this book, so I think many more people need to give it a try. The next one is quite an old and popular book, and I read it only a few months back, and I should say that this was the perfect cozy book that I've read so far this year, which does not have anything otherworldly in it, and the book is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I read this book only after reading Carry On like 2.5 years back, and I should say that I got most of the references to Carry On from this one. Now in this book, we follow our main character Kat, who after getting into college is not that much of a person who connects with other people in any way. She also has a twin, and that's the main reason why she also got into the same college. But after getting into that college and starting her life there, she faces a lot of issues, and she also has some friends along with her who keep on helping her in order to make her life even more comfortable in that place. The only solace that Kat experiences throughout her life ever since her teen years is writing fanfiction, especially for the Carry On series. It is happy, sad, cozy, and will also make you feel a bit envious of the friendships that she's attracting in her life. And it's also the kind of new adult book which both young adults as well as adults can read. Try reading it when you're free during a night time, lying in your bed, and I'm sure you'll have a great time. The next book is probably the most popular of all the books that I'm recommending today, because this is something which started off the spree of recommending cozy books throughout, especially on BookTube. And while I'm saying this itself, some of you might have guessed, yes, the book is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, which is an adult cozy fantasy story. Just because I'm saying adults doesn't mean anyone else cannot read it. Anyone can read this because it is not at all explicit or sexy in any way. It is just totally cozy. Here we basically follow our main character Viv, who's an orc, and she has had this very violent and bloody past. But because of some things that happen, she has decided to quit her career and start a coffee shop in this very small town. The basic plot of the book is just the construction of the coffee shop and the build-up of a found family that Viv and the others make in this small town. Everything about this book is really subtle and perfect in terms of the coziness that it provides. And I think that's why many people are so much attracted towards this, because when it comes to fantasy itself, we are very much used to high stakes and a lot of violent things happening on, especially when it comes to sword and sorcery. But this one is totally in an opposite direction, and it has really low stakes. It just feels like an everyday thing that you see at a slice of life kind of story, and I personally think we all need more of this kind of books. I have not read the second book yet because the UK edition of the sequel, which matches with this one, is still not available for me. So once it's available, I'll be probably reading that too pretty soon. So even if you don't read the other books in this list, definitely try this. I'm sure you'll not at all be disappointed. Next, I want to recommend you a graphic novel. It is just a single book, and trust me, I think this is probably the coziest of all the books that I've read so far this year, because I did not know going into the book that this is going to be a cozy story with a lot of strong things that are explored. And the graphic novel is Turtle Red by Kim Joy. I read it on Prime Reading. I think it is still available in Prime Reading, so you can give it a go if it is available. Now in this story, we basically follow our main character who's totally depressed, and she has a lot of bad things that are going on in her life. She has a broken up relationship. Career-wise, she's not doing that well. And in general itself, she has a lot of anxiety and nervousness because of all the things that are going on in her life. She's in therapy, and during this time, what happens is she gets this opportunity to join a baking club or a baking class. And once she joins there, each and everyone there just accepts her as she is, especially the person who is in charge of the class. How all these people come together and help this main character, at the same time how she helps the other people and makes their lives as well as her own life better, is the entire story of this book. It is really dark at instances, especially while exploring certain things that are related to mental health. At the same time, it is also super cozy because once you read through all those things and see what all is happening to our main character and the surrounding characters, you'll get that heartwarming feeling very strongly, because I'm sure anyone who's human can relate with such instances inside the book. It'll hardly take an hour or two to read, so just go forward and try it. It's easily one of the best books that I've read so far this year. Next we have another YA contemporary book, and it is Act Cool by Toby McSmith, in which we follow our main character August, who's a trans teen boy, and he's from this very rural area, and him being trans is not accepted by his parents. So he just makes a plan and gets to New York in order to stay with his aunt and enrolls himself in this school where he can study acting, and he's also really good at it. Now his transition has not started yet because he's not permitted by his parents or allowed by his parents in order to go forward with it, and they are also not accepting the fact that he's a boy. While battling all these things, he also concentrates a lot on his career and his love life by forming a beautiful friend group surrounding him. The aunt character whom we see here supporting him is also really good. If you're looking forward to read a book that has a proper trans representation, at the same time showing all the struggles that trans people have to face just because they are whom they are, you need to try this one. I think it conveys everything that it wants to convey at the perfect instances while maintaining the coherence with the plot and the character. I'm saying it is cozy because his school life and his life with his aunt itself just feels really comfortable for a person who's going through so many hardships in life, and I think many people might be able to resonate with it. That's why I want to recommend it today. Next we have a translated Japanese book, which is The Cat Who Saved Books by Sosuke Natsukawa. Now in this book we follow a small boy who doesn't have any parents, and he's been brought up by his grandfather, who owns this huge used bookstore. And all of a sudden, at the beginning of the book, what happens is his grandfather dies, and because of this the boy is to be taken over and grown up by his aunt, and he has a few days in order to sell off all the books that the used bookstore has and try to gather his things in order to start his life with his aunt in a different town. During this time, what happens is a cat out of nowhere comes to the bookstore and starts talking with the boy. The boy is a bit confused and thinks that he's imagining things, but the cat makes it clear that it is actually speaking to him, and he wants the boy to do certain things for him in order to save the books in the world. So the boy goes with the cat just in order to save the books of the world, and we see them going to 3 different places in 3 parallel realities. And what are all the things so many of us are doing just in order to read a lot more books, and how some people even ill-treat books is explored in these 3 stories. It is not just eye-opening for us readers but also people in general, and the talking cat aspect of it is also kind of fun because the cat is super sassy. You can just read this with a cup of coffee, or you can listen to the audiobook just as I did. I think the audiobook for this one will be far better because I had such a fun time listening to the audiobook. And if you're someone like me and enjoys Japanese culture, you need to try this one. Next we have yet another graphic novel, and it's a series, and it's also one of the most popular graphic novel series out there, and it also has a Netflix adaptation, both of which are really good. And it's obviously Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. If I'm not recommending Heartstopper in a video about cozy books, I'd be doing something which is very unjust and not proper. Hence, I'm just recommending Heartstopper to you guys. It's basically a YA LGBTQ plus romance series, but leaving the romance, it has a ton of other stuff going on, especially mental health representation and how we have to include people no matter whom they are and try to help them, because the world is not an easy place for anyone to live in. The 5th volume of the series is coming out this December. I think it's around December 19th here in India, and I'm super pumped to read it. I've not watched the 2nd season of the Netflix show yet, but I'll be watching it pretty soon, which is an added advantage because if you finish reading the series, you can also go and watch the Netflix adaptation, which is just as good as the books. So I don't even have to think you need to read Heartstopper no matter who you are. The next one is a series of sci-fi/fantasy novellas, and it is the Monk and Robot series by Becky Chambers. There are 2 books out so far. The first one is A Psalm for the Wild-Built, and the second one is A Prayer for the Crown-Shy. Now in this series, we follow a monk called a tea monk along with a robot. And in this particular world, what has happened is all of humanity have taken over the world, and all the robots have gone into the jungles and just secluded themselves away from the population, because of which there is no machinery and technology in the world right now, and humans have to deal with everything that they are doing with their lives on their own without the help of technology and robots, computers, and all other such electronic stuff. And our main character, the tea monk, is a non-binary person, and their job is to make this tea to anyone who asks for it, and they kind of therapize the people. The exploration of identity, at the same time taking care of other people who are surrounding you and caring for them, is the basic plot of the series. I read both of these back to back and they were just perfect. You can read both of them in just a single sitting each, and they'll just wrap your heart in a blanket. Next, we have one of my personal favorite books from last year, 2022, and it is also quite an old book and super popular too. It is written by two very huge authors, which is Will Grayson by John Green and David Levitin, in which we follow two main characters, Will Grayson, who both have the same name and are of the same age, but the circles in which they are revolving are totally different from one another. One of the Will Graysons is super privileged and he does not know the extent of privileges that he's having. At the same time, he's also not a brat in any way. On the other hand, the other Will Grayson has a single parent and he's also under medication for depression. How both of these Will Graysons meet each other and what all happens in their lives after they meet each other is the actual plot of this book. It is very heartwarming, and when we see the two sides of the world that both of these Will Graysons express, it will easily melt our heart. And I also think both of these Will Graysons will be relatable for a lot of people out there, just like they were for me. So just for that reason itself, many people can go forward and try this because they'll be able to see themselves inside the story. And at last, we have yet another super popular book by one of the most popular authors out there, and the book is Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I have recommended Anxious People a lot of times already in the channel. It's been over 2 years since I read it, and I can vividly remember most of the things that are going on within the story. Here we follow a robber who goes on and takes the people inside an open house as hostages and asks some ransom to the cops who are trying to get these people out of the open house. And it's basically the story about the world's worst robber and the world's worst hostages put together. How all these people understand the robber and start empathizing with the robber. At the same time, how the robber empathizes with the people who are held as hostages inside the house is really fun and cozy to read. Just like a few of the other books which I said before, this will also melt your heart because there are around 11 to 12 characters here and we get the backstory of each and every one of them. Not so much in detail, but just the proper gist which we need to know in order to understand why they are acting in certain ways. Just go forward and try it. I cannot give away much more of it without spoiling it for you guys. So just go forward and read it for yourself. I'm sure you'll be able to understand everything that I'm saying once you read it. So yes guys, those are the 10 cozy books that I wanted to recommend to all of you today. And if you have any other such cozy book recommendations, please feel free to let me know them down in the comments below because I am also looking for some really cozy books to read. And if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned in the video, leave your opinions of them also down in the comments and we can discuss. If you did find this video useful and enjoyable, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.